Tucked away in the countryside, far from the hustle and bustle of the city, lies an ancient village called Thurrock. This village has been forgotten by the years, hidden by spreading vines and thick fog. The once thriving streets are now empty, and the deserted houses are gradually being swallowed up by nature. The branches of the trees stretch out into the streets like a pair of staring, ghostly eyes, and the old church bell tower stands in the center, its bells having long since stopped ringing. An eerie atmosphere envelops the village, as if time has stopped here, leaving only a desolate echo. The protagonist, a curious traveler, stumbles upon the legend of Thurrock. In his desire to explore the unknown, he decides to travel to this ancient village and see for himself what has been forgotten by the ages. As he crossed the vine-encrusted gates and stepped into the land of Thurrock, he felt a strange atmosphere. The houses lining the streets were deserted, but the faint glow from the broken windows seemed to speak of the life that once lived here. He wandered through the empty streets, listening to the echoes of his footsteps on the stone floor. The former prosperity of Thurrock had long since been lost to time, and the silence of the village seemed to conceal an unsolvable mystery. At sunset, he arrived at the center of Thurrock, the deserted church. The doors of the church were decaying, but on the porch he found an ancient carving depicting the village in its former splendor. The smiles of the people, the playfulness of the children, all frozen forever in the carving. The atmosphere inside the church is even more eerie, and the dusty pews seem to hold the murmurs of those days. However, the protagonist also senses a sense of unease, as if some unspeakable secret is hidden in this tranquil space. As night falls, an eerie mist fills the ancient streets of Thurrock. The protagonist feels as if something is watching him around him, while a faint song comes from a deserted church in the distance, as if traveling from the past. In this eerie setting, the protagonist realizes that Thurrock is not just a forgotten village, but a place that hides many unsolved mysteries. He decides to stay and continue to explore the secrets of this ancient village, not knowing what kind of horror curtains he will unveil. On a chilly night, a ghostly song came from the deserted church in the village. It was an old hymn, and the song revealed a deep sadness and loneliness. No one knows the source of the song, but every time the moon is full, the song echoes again in a chilling way. The protagonist settles down in the village inn and hears the legend about the mysterious song. People say that it is the forgotten souls of the village speaking at night, a voice sealed by time, awakening memories that have been put to sleep. On the night of the full moon, the protagonist decides to go to the deserted church to witness the miracle of the ghostly song for himself. The doors of the church are still decaying, but the sound of the song becomes clearer and clearer, as if it is leading him on. As he enters the church, he is greeted by darkness, and the ghostly singing seems to come from the altar in the depths. The hero gradually approaches, and as the song grows louder, he feels a strange power surrounding him. When he reaches the altar, he finds a pale image of a woman floating in the air. Her eyes were empty, seemingly gazing into the endless void, and it was from her mouth that the sad song came out. The protagonist was captivated by the song, as if he was being lured into an uncontrollable dream. His thoughts gradually blurred, and he seemed to have some kind of marvelous connection with that distant time and space under the guidance of the song. However, all of a sudden, the song came to an abrupt end. The image of the woman began to fade away, as if it were a phantom. The protagonist came to his senses and realized that he was standing in an empty church, surrounded by silence. He realizes that the ghostly song is a call from the village's past, a declaration of lost souls. He felt a deep sadness, as if he had heard the voices of those forgotten years, sealed by age, but never forgotten. The hero leaves the church in silence, his heart filled with unspeakable emotions. He realizes that this ancient village hides many deeply buried stories, and he will continue to go deeper and deeper, exploring more spooky tales and uncovering the secrets hidden behind the desolation. In an old house, an aged portrait was found. In the portrait was the face of a young woman with eyes that seemed to gaze into the distance, a gaze filled with longing and sorrow. The villagers' legend has it that this is the village's former goddess, imprisoned in the painting to protect the village. The protagonist hears the legend about the portrait and decides to go in search of it. When he arrives at the house where the portrait is located, the door is half open and the house smells of dust and age. The portrait hangs on the wall, its wooden frame yellowed with age. But the beauty of the woman in the painting is still touching. The woman's face is gentle and soft, and her eyes seem to be able to penetrate time, gazing ahead. The protagonist is captivated by the portrait and seems to be able to feel the longing and sadness in the woman's eyes. He is unable to resist, as if drawn by the sight of the woman in the painting. At nightfall, the hero returns to the house again. In the dim candlelight, he seems to see the woman in the portrait, and her eyes begin to twinkle as if they are trying to communicate with him. The hero's heart races, and he senses a mysterious power guiding him. He moved closer to the portrait, and all of a sudden, the mouth of the woman in the portrait moved, emitting a silent cry. The hero's heart fluttered as if he had heard her call, and he tried to communicate with the wordless portrait, trying to decipher the message in her eyes. The eyes of the woman in the portrait began to become anxious, and she seemed to be trying to convey a message that she could not express. The protagonist feels an invisible bond, as if the woman in the portrait is trying to transmit her memories and emotions to him, but is prevented from doing so by some force. As the night wore on, the woman's eyes gradually became gentler, as if to tell the hero that she no longer needed to be imprisoned in the painting, and that her soul had found peace. The hero felt a sense of relief, as if he had somehow connected with the soul of the woman in the painting. When the hero leaves that room, he feels himself called by the woman in the portrait, and he decides to continue his exploration deeper and deeper to uncover the hidden story behind her. He realizes that the wordless portrait is a link between the past and the present, and that he will be the key figure in interpreting this story. Under the oldest house in the village, there is a sealed cellar. The villagers say it is a forgotten place that stores unspeakable secrets. The protagonist decides to explore the cellar, only to find in the darkness a pile of ancient journals that record terrible events from the past. The hero finds the entrance to the cellar underneath the old house. He gently pushes open a heavy door and enters the dark depths. The cellar is filled with dampness and faint echoes that seem to tell forgotten stories. In one corner of the cellar, the protagonist found a pile of ancient journals. The covers of these journals were torn, and the writing was pale, but the hero could barely make out the handwriting. He begins to read these journals, and gradually learns about the terrible events that took place in Thurrock in the past. These journals record the existence of a cult that was once the darkness of Thurrock. The cult worshipped an ancient evil god, and in order to gain immortality, they performed a series of horrific rituals in the village, sacrificing innocent villagers as sacrifices. These sacrificed souls, imprisoned in the village, became part of the curse. The diary writes that the cult's leader used to perform horrific rituals in the cellar to summon the power of the evil gods. The cellar has witnessed countless sacrifices and evils, and the horrors are depicted in a horrific scene. As he flips through the diary, the protagonist can feel the evil permeating the darkness. As the story progresses, the protagonist gradually understands the ambitions and evil deeds of the cult masters. In their quest for power and immortality, they were willing to turn the village into a corner of hell, and the cellar became a witness to their dark rituals. The protagonist felt a chill down his back, as if the demonic power of the cult was still awakening in the cellar. He decides to take the diaries out of the cellar to reveal the truth about the past and tell the world about the dark history of the village. He understands that only by revealing the forgotten stories can the soul of the village rest in peace and the curse be broken. With the diary in hand, the protagonist leaves the cellar with determination in his heart. He decides to continue exploring the secrets of the village in order to unlock the forbidden story that has been sealed by the years, so that those forgotten souls can find peace. On the night of the full moon, the protagonist meets the ghost again in the deserted church. This time, the ghost appears older, but there is still a determined gleam in her eyes. She claims to be the guardian of the village of Thurrock, calming the ancient mystical forces. The protagonist is shaken, amazed at the existence of the spectral woman and the mysterious power she represents. The ghost tells him that she is a goddess imprisoned in a portrait, and that she used to protect the village, but was cursed by a cult and could never leave. She reveals to the protagonist that the curse of the cult has trapped the souls of the village and prevented them from being freed. She pleads with the protagonist to help her and undo the curse so that the forgotten souls can rest in peace. She believes that only by finding the root of the curse can the village be relieved of its horrible fate. Without hesitation, the hero agrees to the ghost's request. He decides to dig deeper to find out the source and evil deeds of the cult and unravel this dark mystery. Together with the ghost, he searches the ruins of the village for clues and traces of the past. As the investigation deepens, the protagonist gradually uncovers the history of the cult. He discovers that a long time ago, the village was ruled by a dark cult, and those cultists performed horrific rituals in the name of an evil god to gain the power of eternal life. These rituals sacrificed countless innocent lives, and curses descended upon the entire village. The ghost guides the hero to the cult's hiding place, a forgotten altar with a connection to the evil god. In front of the altar, the hero finds ancient documents that record the power of the evil god and the rituals of the cult. At nightfall, the protagonist and the ghost arrive at the altar, ready to unlock the source of the curse. Using mysterious rituals, they seal the power of the evil god within the altar, severing the cult's connection to the real world. The process is fraught with risks and challenges, but they believe that only then will the curse of the village be broken. As the ritual is completed, the protagonist feels a powerful surge of power towards the altar, and the influence of the evil god begins to dissipate. The image of the spectral woman gradually brightens, as if she has regained her freedom. She expresses her gratitude to the hero, telling him that the souls of the village can finally rest in peace. However, the apparition warns the hero that the power of the cult has not been completely eradicated, and that the cost of lifting the curse may be greater. The protagonist realizes that he has been drawn into a larger battle and must continue to work to protect the village from the evil. In the moonlight, the protagonist stands with the ghost in front of the ruins of the deserted church, watching the future of the village of Thurrock. He is determined to become the guardian of the land, watching over the forgotten souls for all eternity. As the mystery is gradually solved, the horrific secrets of the village gradually emerge. The protagonist has to face the imprisoned ghosts, and in order to free them, he must return to that dark moment and engage in a final duel with the master of the evil cult. The protagonist decides to travel with the specter to that sealed altar to recreate the rituals of the past in order to undo the curse of the village. But the specter warns him that it will be a dangerous duel, and that the evil cultist has great dark powers and is the source of the curse. On the night of the full moon, the hero and the specter go to the altar and begin to reenact the rituals of the past. They chant an ancient incantation that evokes the power of the evil cultist while attempting to seal it away. As the incantation plays, the altar gradually radiates a majestic dark energy that envelops the entire village. Suddenly, an evil aura appeared in the air, and the image of the evil sect master was revealed. He exuded darkness, and his gaze was filled with cunning and cruelty. The evil cultist let out a sneer, mocking the efforts of the protagonist and the ghost. The evil cultist attacked, and the power of darkness surged like a tidal wave. The hero and the ghost fought back, their minds and powers connected, and together they resisted the evil cultist's attack. However, the power of the evil cultist gradually overwhelmed, and the hero felt powerless and desperate. At the critical moment, the ghost woman emitted a bright light and supported the hero with her power. The hero felt the surge of power, and his heart was filled with courage and determination. He was no longer afraid and fought fiercely against the master of the evil sect. In a fierce duel, the hero finally overcame the dark power of the evil cultist and, with the help of the ghost, managed to seal the power of the evil god. The evil cultist lets out a terrible scream, and as the dark power dissipates, he turns into nothingness. With the disappearance of the evil sect master, the atmosphere of the village gradually returned to tranquility. The spectral woman gazes gratefully at the hero as she tells him that the souls of the village can finally be saved, and the shadow of the curse will be erased. The hero stands with the specter at the altar, watching the future of Throck's village. They know that although the evil cult master has been defeated, the effects of the curse still remain. The protagonist decides to stay and become the guardian of the village, guarding the land and ensuring that the curse never returns. In the moonlight, the protagonist and the specter clasp hands, their hearts close to each other. The efforts of the protagonist and the ghost have finally lifted the curse from the village, but the nightmare does not end perfectly. With the disappearance of the evil cult leader, the atmosphere of the village is restored to peace, but the traces of the demon still linger. The protagonist discovers a forgotten altar with the name of the evil cultist engraved on it among the debris of the village. He realizes that although the evil cultist has been defeated, his presence is still deeply imprinted in the village's memory. With the disappearance of the evil cultist, the village gradually comes back to life, but people still find it hard to forget the horrors of the past. The protagonist tries to share the story of what he experienced with the villagers, hoping that through the revelation of the truth, everyone can gradually come out of the shadows. However, not everyone is willing to believe the hero's words. Some villagers are still afraid of the memories of the past, which they refuse to recall and face. In the streets of the village, the hero sees fear and doubt in people's eyes, as if the shadow of the past is still hanging over the land. Determined not to give up, the protagonist spends a lot of time talking to the villagers, sharing his experiences and trying to unravel the mystery of the past. Gradually, some of them begin to believe his words and start to recall the past, with gratitude and trust in their eyes for the hero. However, although the shadows of the past are gradually lifting, the terrifying atmosphere of the village remains. People often hear strange noises at night and feel an eerie atmosphere, as if the shadow of the devil still lingers. The protagonist understands that even if the curse is lifted, the presence of the devil has left an indelible mark on people's hearts. In the midst of all the calm, the protagonist stood in front of the ruins of the deserted church and gazed into the distance of the village. He knows that although the nightmare is over, the mark of terror will remain on the land forever. He decides to remain in the village, to be that link that holds the past and the future, guarding this once cursed place. Under the moonlight, the protagonist's gaze is firm, and he is determined to guard the village, so that the memory of the demon will gradually be forgotten, and peace will be restored to the village. Though the horrors of the past cannot be erased, he believes that under his guardianship, the village will eventually find a peaceful home of its own. The efforts of the protagonist and the ghost finally bring the village out of its gloom, but the story is not yet over. On one night, as the moonlight pours over the ruins of the village, the protagonist begins to feel a strange presence that seems to be an eternal echo of the damned. He follows this sensation as he wanders through the streets of the village. Gradually, he begins to hear faint voices, as if someone is whispering. He looked around nervously, but found it empty. However, the voice became clearer and clearer, gradually forming a vague sentence. The protagonist's heart races as he realizes that it is an echo of the past, sealed in time, but revived in this moment. He continues to follow the voice as it guides him through every corner of the village, seemingly asking him to find something forgotten. Eventually, the protagonist comes to an old, abandoned building. The voice peaked here, and he felt a powerful presence, as if some spirit was calling to him. He pushed open the door and entered the outdated building. In the dim light, he saw a blurry figure sitting in a corner. It was an aged man with empty eyes, seemingly waiting for something. The protagonist approached and felt a mysterious power. He seemed to have some kind of connection with the old man. The old man opened his mouth to speak, his voice full of bleakness and vicissitudes. He tells the hero that he used to be the guardian of the village, and the reason why the ghost woman was imprisoned. He calls himself the Time Guardian and is cursed to guard the village's past and future. He explains that the evil cultist once used a dark ritual to connect him to the ghost woman in order to gain the power of immortality. However, the ritual came at the cost of trapping their souls in the echoes of eternity, preventing true liberation. The protagonist asks, "So what can I do to free you?" The old man smiles slightly and tells him that the only way to truly restore peace to the village is to free their souls by repeating the rituals of the past. However, this ritual was fraught with risk, and it could trigger an even greater disaster. The protagonist takes a deep breath as he decides to take on this responsibility. He realizes that in order to bring true relief to the village, he must face the dark power of the evil sect master and repeat the past rituals over and over again until that eternal echo is liberated. Under the guidance of the old man, the protagonists begin to perform the ritual. They chant ancient incantations that evoke memories of the past and allow time to flow again. However, as the ritual progresses, dark forces emerge, and the shadow of the evil cult master reappears. The protagonist must face his inner fears and engage in a final confrontation with the evil cultist. In a fierce battle, he uses the power of the spectral woman and the old man to finally defeat the evil cultist and seal his dark power. With the disappearance of the evil cultist, the echoes of the past gradually calmed down. The old man's spirit gazes gratefully at the protagonist, who tells him that he has found true relief and can rest in peace.